I have something to say, Felicia Morgan declared, her voice cutting through the silent Fox Theater as 200 guests stared, phones glowing with the shocking truth of her fiancé's betrayal. Welcome, listeners, to a story of love, deception, and a wedding that became a legend. Where are you tuning in from today? Atlanta, Seattle, or somewhere across the globe? What do you think happens when trust is shattered on the eve of a perfect day? Felicia, a brilliant Black project manager, uncovered a devastating secret that turned her dream wedding into a calculated reckoning. Will her revenge bring justice or chaos? Subscribe to our channel to catch every gripping tale we drop and share in the comments where you're listening from. We'd love to know. Can you guess how far Felicia will go to expose the truth? Stay tuned for a story that will leave you speechless. The city of Atlanta pulsed with a rhythm that Felicia Morgan had always found intoxicating. At 32, she was a vision of grace and ambition, her dark skin glowing under the Georgia sun, her eyes sharp with the kind of intelligence that turned heads in boardrooms and beyond. A senior project manager at a cutting-edge tech firm, Felicia had carved out a life that felt like a dream, spun from hard work and unyielding determination. Her midtown loft, with its floor-to-ceiling windows and sleek modern decor, overlooked the city's skyline, a daily reminder of how far she'd come. Her six-figure salary afforded her the kind of freedom most only dreamed of: weekend getaways to Savannah, tailored dresses that hugged her curves, and a collection of jazz vinyls that spun late into the night. But it wasn't the money or the status that made her heart sing. It was the love she'd found with Kevin Walsh, a man who seemed to complete the perfect picture of her life. Kevin, 34, with blonde hair that caught the light like spun gold, was a financial consultant whose charm could disarm a room. They'd met at a jazz festival in Piedmont Park, where the sultry notes of a saxophone had woven through the air, and Kevin's easy smile had caught Felicia's eye across a crowd. He'd approached her with a glass of wine and a quip about her dancing, and within hours they were laughing over shared stories of their childhoods. Hers in Atlanta's vibrant Black community, his in a small town in Ohio. Their connection was electric, a spark that grew into a flame over late-night conversations and impromptu road trips. Within 6 months, Kevin had proposed under a canopy of stars during a weekend in the Blue Ridge Mountains, and Felicia, her heart full, had said yes without hesitation. He was her partner, her confidant, the man who made her believe in soulmates. Their wedding was to be the crown jewel of their love story, set in the opulent Fox Theater, a venue that married old-world grandeur with modern elegance. The reception would follow at the Atlanta Botanical Garden, where fairy lights and magnolia blossoms would create a scene straight out of a fairy tale. Felicia, ever the meticulous planner, had poured her project management expertise into every detail. Invitations, embossed with gold foil, had gone out to 200 guests, family, friends, and colleagues from her tech firm and Kevin's financial network. A live R&B band was booked to serenade the crowd with classics by Aretha Franklin and Stevie Wonder, a nod to Felicia's roots. The menu was a love letter to Southern cuisine, with peach-glazed chicken, collard greens with a modern twist, and a towering red velvet cake. Felicia's best friend Tanya, a fierce lawyer with a laugh that filled rooms, was her maid of honor. Kevin's brother Ryan, a quiet but loyal architect, stood as best man. Every element was perfect, a testament to Felicia's ability to orchestrate beauty and precision. At the heart of Felicia's world was her family, a constellation of love and tradition. Her mother, Diane Morgan, was a retired school teacher whose warmth could melt the coldest hearts. Diane had embraced Kevin as her own, often teasing him about his inability to handle her spicy gumbo. Felicia's father, Harold, a retired civil engineer, was her rock, a man whose quiet strength had taught her the value of loyalty and resilience. He'd walk her down the aisle, his pride palpable in every step. And then there was Lauren Baxter, Felicia's 28-year-old cousin, a white marketing specialist whose wit and charm made her a family favorite. Lauren, the daughter of Diane's sister, had grown up alongside Felicia, their bond forged through summers at Lake Lanier and late-night talks about dreams and heartbreaks. Diane treated Lauren like a second daughter, and Harold often joked that Lauren's endless energy kept the family young. When Felicia introduced Kevin to Lauren, The two hit it off immediately, trading playful banter that seemed to cement Kevin's place in the family. The Morgan family's Sunday brunches were a sacred ritual, held at Diane and Harold's sprawling home in Buckhead. The table groaned under the weight of homemade biscuits, shrimp, and grits, and Diane's famous peach cobbler. Laughter echoed as stories were swapped. Harold's tales of building bridges, Diane's anecdotes from her teaching days, and Felicia's updates on her latest tech projects. Kevin was a natural fit, charming Diane with compliments on her cooking and debating sports with Harold. Lauren, often there with her latest marketing campaign ideas, would tease Kevin about his boring finance job, and he'd fire back with mock indignation. Felicia watched these moments with a full heart, believing she'd found a love that would last a lifetime, surrounded by a family that felt unbreakable. As the wedding approached, Atlanta seemed to hum with anticipation. Felicia's colleagues at the tech firm, where she led complex software rollouts, marveled at her ability to juggle work and wedding planning with ease. Her boss, a no-nonsense woman named Carla, had even offered her an extra week off for the honeymoon, a rare gesture. Kevin's financial firm, a prestigious outfit downtown, was equally supportive, with his colleagues planning to attend the wedding in droves. The couple had chosen a honeymoon in the Bahamas, a week of turquoise waters and lazy beach days already paid for with a deposit. Felicia's gown, a custom Vera Wang that hugged her frame like a second skin, was the talk of her bridal party. Tanya, overseeing fittings, declared it a masterpiece, while Lauren, a bridesmaid, gushed over how Felicia looked like royalty. In the quiet moments, Felicia would stand on her loft's balcony, gazing at the city lights, and feel a profound gratitude. She'd built a life that honored her parents' sacrifices, her own ambitions, and the love she shared with Kevin. The wedding wasn't just a ceremony, it was a celebration of everything she'd worked for, a career that challenged her, a family that grounded her, and a future with a man who seemed to understand her soul. Lauren's presence in the bridal party felt like a final piece of the puzzle, a cousin who'd been there through every milestone, from her first coding class to her first heartbreak. As Felicia finalized the seating chart, envisioning Diane's smile and Harold's proud tears, she believed nothing could shatter this perfect moment. Atlanta, with its vibrant energy, was the backdrop to a life that felt untouchable, a dream woven from love, trust, and the promise of forever. The air in Atlanta buzzed with the kind of electric anticipation that only a grand wedding could ignite, and Felicia Morgan was at the heart of it, orchestrating a masterpiece. Her project manager's mind, honed by years of steering complex tech rollouts, transformed the chaos of wedding planning into a symphony of precision. The Fox Theater, with its gilded arches and velvet curtains, was secured as the stage for her vows, a venue that promised to wrap her love story in timeless elegance. The reception at the Atlanta Botanical Garden was to be a dreamscape of twinkling lights and blooming magnolias, a celebration that would linger in the memories of all who attended. Felicia's vision was clear. This wasn't just a wedding, it was a declaration of her and Kevin Walsh's unbreakable bond, a moment to etch their love into the fabric of their lives. Felicia's days were a whirlwind of decisions, each one a thread in the tapestry of her perfect day. She sat at her midtown loft's sleek glass dining table, her laptop open to spreadsheets that rivaled her work projects in complexity. Invitations, embossed with delicate gold foil, had been mailed to 200 guests, a vibrant mix of family, friends, and colleagues from her tech firm and Kevin's financial network. She handpicked every detail, the calligraphy on the place cards, the scent of gardenia in the centerpieces, and the playlist for the R&B band that would fill the air with soulful melodies. The menu was a love letter to her southern roots, peach-glazed chicken, creamy macaroni and cheese, and collard greens elevated with a hint of smoked paprika. The crowning glory was a 5-tier red velvet cake, its rich crimson layers a nod to her heritage, adorned with edible gold leaf that shimmered like her dreams. Kevin, with his easy charm and blonde hair that seemed to glow in any light, was her perfect partner in this endeavor. He'd sit beside her, his tie loosened after a long day at his financial firm, offering opinions with a playful grin. "Felicia, you're running this like a Fortune 500 merger," he'd tease, his blue eyes sparkling as he approved her choice of bourbon for the open bar. He insisted on a vintage car for their grand exit, a cream-colored Rolls-Royce that would glide them away under a shower of sparklers. His enthusiasm was infectious, and Felicia felt her heart swell each time he squeezed her hand, whispering, "We're building something beautiful, babe." His colleagues, a polished crew from downtown Atlanta, were thrilled to attend, already buzzing about the event of the season. Felicia's best friend Tanya was a whirlwind of energy as maid of honor, her lawyer's precision a perfect complement to Felicia's planning. Tanya scouted vendors with the tenacity of a courtroom advocate, ensuring the florist delivered flawless orchids and the caterer nailed the cornbread's buttery crumble. "This wedding's going to make history," Tanya declared, her laughter echoing through the bridal boutique as Felicia tried on her Vera Wang gown. The dress was a vision, ivory silk that clung to her curves, with a train that flowed like a river behind her. Tanya's eyes misted over, but she quickly quipped, "Girl, you're serving royalty, and Kevin better keep up." Felicia laughed, feeling invincible in the mirror's reflection, her confidence bolstered by Tanya's unwavering support. Kevin's brother Ryan was the best man, a quiet architect whose steady presence balanced the wedding party's vibrancy. He helped coordinate the groomsmen's tuxedos, ensuring they matched Kevin's tailored black suit, and offered thoughtful input on the ceremony's flow. Felicia appreciated Ryan's calm demeanor, a grounding force amid the flurry of preparations. The wedding party also included Lauren Baxter, Felicia's cousin, whose marketing flair shone in her role as a bridesmaid. Lauren suggested a hashtag for guests to share photos, Arasha Felicia and Kevin Forever, and designed a chic program that blended modern minimalism with Southern charm. Her lavender bridesmaid dress was already hanging in Felicia's closet, a symbol of their lifelong bond. Felicia's parents, Diane and Harold Morgan, were the emotional anchors of the planning. Diane, with her school teacher's warmth, dove into the details with maternal zeal, taste-testing desserts and helping Felicia choose linens that matched the garden's aesthetic. "This day's for you, baby," Diane would say, her voice thick with pride as she adjusted Felicia's veil during fittings. Harold, ever the practical engineer, ensured the logistics were flawless, from parking arrangements to the sound system's clarity. He'd smile softly, his eyes crinkling, and say, "My girl's gonna shine brighter than the Fox's chandelier." Their love enveloped Felicia, making every decision feel like a family affair. Lauren's presence was a constant delight, her marketing expertise adding polish to the event. She'd breeze into planning sessions with ideas, custom cocktail napkins with the couple's initials, a photo booth with vintage props, and her infectious energy kept everyone smiling. At one brunch, she and Kevin debated the merits of sweet tea versus lemonade for the mocktail bar, their playful banter drawing laughs from Diane and Harold. Felicia watched, her heart full, believing Lauren's closeness to Kevin was a sign of how perfectly he fit into her world. The family's Sunday brunches, held at Diane and Harold's Buckhead home, became planning hubs, the tables strewn with fabric swatches and vendor contracts alongside plates of shrimp and grits. The honeymoon was another piece of the puzzle, a week in the Bahamas where Felicia and Kevin would bask in turquoise waters and each other's company. Felicia had already paid the deposit, envisioning lazy mornings on the beach and nights dancing under the stars. Every vendor was locked in, from the photographer who'd capture their first dance to the jeweler crafting their custom wedding bands. Felicia's colleagues at the tech firm marveled at her ability to juggle work and wedding planning, her presentations as flawless as her seating chart. Her boss, Carla, even slipped her a bottle of champagne, whispering, "For the bride who runs the show like a CEO." As the final weeks unfolded, Felicia felt a quiet thrill. The Fox Theater's grandeur, the garden's enchantment, the love of her family and friends, it was all coming together. She'd stand in her loft, gazing at the city's skyline, and imagine the moment she'd walk down the aisle. Kevin waiting, her parents beaming, Lauren by her side. This was more than a wedding. It was a celebration of a life she'd built with intention, a love she believed was eternal. Every detail, from the band's set list to the Rolls-Royce's polish, was a testament to her vision. Atlanta, with its vibrant pulse, was the perfect stage for a day that promised to be unforgettable, a day that would mark the beginning of forever. The Georgian Terrace Hotel was a cocoon of elegance, its chandeliers casting a soft glow over the suite where Felicia Morgan sat, surrounded by the quiet hum of anticipation. The night before her wedding, Atlanta's skyline sparkled beyond the window, a glittering backdrop to the final preparations for her union with Kevin Walsh. Felicia, ever the meticulous project manager, was reviewing the seating chart, her laptop casting a faint blue light across her face. Her Vera Wang gown hung in the corner, a silent promise of the perfect day to come. The room was strewn with wedding details, sample programs, a velvet box holding her custom earrings, and Kevin's tablet, left behind after their last planning session. The air was thick with the scent of her gardenia perfume, a fragrance she'd chosen to mark the occasion. But in a single moment, that carefully constructed world would shatter, leaving Felicia to confront a betrayal that cut deeper than she could have imagined. It was nearing 11 p.m. when Felicia reached for Kevin's tablet, needing to confirm the placement of a last-minute guest. The device was unlocked, its screen glowing with a spreadsheet she'd shared with him earlier. As she swiped to open the app, a notification flashed, sharp and unyielding, like a crack in the night's calm. A text from Lauren Baxter, her cousin, her confidant, her bridesmaid. The preview was innocuous enough. Kevin, last night was... But something in its intimacy made Felicia's stomach lurch. Her fingers, usually steady from years of navigating high-stakes tech projects, hesitated. She told herself it was nothing, a harmless message, but curiosity, laced with an unspoken dread, pulled her in. She tapped the notification, and the full message unfurled like a poison blooming in her chest. Kevin, last night was magical. I can still feel your hands on me. Can't wait to steal another moment. Our little secret, right? The words sent at 10:52 p.m. burned into her retinas. Attached was a photo, time-stamped from the previous night at 11:15 p.m., showing Kevin and Lauren in a hotel room, their bodies entwined in a way that left no room for misinterpretation. Kevin's blonde hair was unmistakable, his hands possessive on Lauren's frame. Lauren, her cousin who'd shared her childhood secrets, who'd laughed with her at family brunches, who'd helped design the wedding programs, stared into the camera with a smile that now felt like a blade. Felicia's breath caught, her heart pounding so loudly it drowned out the city's hum. The tablet slipped from her hands, landing softly on the plush carpet. The betrayal was a tidal wave, crashing over the life she'd built with Kevin, the trust she'd placed in Lauren. She'd been at her bachelorette party the previous night, dancing with Tanya and her friends at a rooftop lounge, toasting to a future she thought was certain. Meanwhile, Kevin and Lauren had been together, plotting this deception while she laughed, oblivious under Atlanta's stars. The photo's metadata was damning, its timestamp a cold confirmation that this wasn't a drunken mistake but a calculated act. Felicia's mind raced, piecing together fragments she'd ignored. Lauren's lingering glances at Kevin during family dinners, Kevin's late nights at client meetings, the new cologne Lauren had complimented a little too warmly. Each memory was a splinter, sharp and searing. Her hands trembled, but her mind, trained to solve crises under pressure, snapped into focus. She didn't scream or cry. Instead, she picked up the tablet, her fingers moving with the precision of a coder debugging a fatal error. She took screenshots of the message and photo, her training and documentation kicking in. Each click was a step toward clarity, a way to anchor herself in the chaos. She uploaded the evidence to her secure cloud drive, a fortress she'd built for work projects but now repurposed for survival. The act was mechanical, but beneath it, a storm of emotions raged. Hurt, fury, disbelief. Kevin, the man who'd proposed under a starry sky, who'd promised forever, had betrayed her. Lauren, her sister in all but blood, had stabbed her in the heart. Felicia stood, pacing the suite, her reflection flickering in the mirror. She was still the woman who'd climbed the ranks in a male-dominated tech world, who'd earned her place through grit and brilliance. This betrayal wouldn't define her, it would fuel her. She sat back down, her mind shifting from shock to strategy. Confronting them now would be too easy, too fleeting. They'd planned to let her walk down the aisle, to stand before their families and vow love while hiding their secret. That audacity deserved more than a private reckoning. It demanded a stage as grand as the one they'd chosen to deceive her on. Felicia's eyes narrowed, her resolve hardening like steel. The Fox Theater, with its 200 guests, would be the perfect arena to unveil their truth. As the city slept outside, Felicia began to plan, her heart broken but her spirit unbroken, ready to turn betrayal into a moment of devastating clarity. The Georgian Terrace Hotel suite, once a sanctuary of anticipation, now felt like a war room as Felicia Morgan sat at the mahogany desk, her laptop casting a stark glow across her face. The city of Atlanta slumbered beyond the window, its skyline a silent witness to the seismic shift in her world. The tablet with Kevin's damning message from Lauren lay beside her, its screen dark, but its contents burning in her mind. Felicia's heart ached, a raw wound from the betrayal of her fiancé and cousin, but her mind was a machine, honed by years of navigating high-stakes tech projects. She wouldn't crumble. She wouldn't confront them in a tear-soaked outburst. Instead, she would orchestrate a response as precise and devastating as a perfectly executed code. The wedding, just hours away, would be the stage for her reckoning, and Felicia, the master project manager, was crafting a plan that would expose their deceit in front of everyone they knew. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, channeling her pain into action. First, she secured the evidence, the screenshots of Lauren's text. "Kevin, last night was magical. I can still feel your hands on me. Our little secret, right?" And the explicit photo was already backed up to her cloud drive, but she double-checked the encryption, ensuring no one could access them prematurely. Years of managing sensitive data had taught her the value of redundancy and security. She created a simple web page, its design clean but unassuming, like a digital trap waiting to spring. The page displayed the text message in bold, the timestamp glaring like an accusation, and the photo, cropped just enough to preserve a shred of decorum, but unmistakable in its truth. She hosted it on a private server she used for work projects, one robust enough to handle the traffic of 200 curious wedding guests. Felicia's mind raced with the logistics of exposure. A confrontation would give Kevin and Lauren room to spin lies, to deflect or deny. No, she needed something undeniable, something that would unfold in real time before their loved ones. She opened a QR code generator, her hands steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. The code would link directly to the webpage, a silent courier of truth. To disguise its purpose, she designed a graphic around it, a delicate border of magnolias, the flower of her reception, with text that read, "A surprise from Felicia and Kevin." It looked like a wedding favor, the kind of modern touch guests would expect from a tech-savvy couple. She tested the code on her phone, the web page loading instantly, the evidence staring back at her. It was perfect, a digital guillotine. The clock on her laptop read 1:45 a.m., but sleep was a distant thought. Felicia slipped into the hotel's business center, the hum of the printer filling the quiet as she produced 250 cards, each bearing the QR code and its deceptive message. The cards were elegant, printed on cream cardstock that matched the wedding's aesthetic, their purpose hidden behind a veneer of celebration. She stacked them neatly, her fingers brushing the smooth paper, each card a piece of her resolve. Back in her suite, she tucked them into a velvet-lined box, ready to hand off to her wedding coordinator, Jasmine, who would distribute them during the ceremony. Jasmine's professionalism would ensure discretion, and Felicia's vague explanation, a surprise element for the guests, would raise no suspicions. Her next move was legal protection. At 2:30 a.m., she dialed Monique Carter, her attorney and confidant, whose sharp mind had guided Felicia through contracts and negotiations. The phone rang 3 times before Monique's voice, groggy but alert, answered. "Felicia, what's wrong?" she asked, sensing the urgency. Felicia's voice was calm, almost clinical, as she recounted the betrayal. The text, the photo, the timestamp that pinned Kevin and Lauren's affair to the night of her bachelorette party. Monique listened, her silence a testament to her understanding of the gravity. "You're in control here," she said finally. "Sharing this evidence is your right. It's your life, your story. Legally, you're clear, but don't sign any marriage documents tomorrow." Monique offered to attend the wedding, blending into the crowd as a safeguard, her presence a quiet assurance that Felicia's plan would hold. Monique's advice went beyond legality. Document everything, she urged. Timestamps, witnesses, every step. The truth is your weapon, and it's sharper than any lie they could tell. Felicia nodded, though Monique couldn't see her, and made a mental note to keep her phone's camera ready. She saved every action, uploading the web page, generating the QR code, printing the cards, with timestamps. Her project manager's instinct for evidence as natural as breathing. Monique's final words lingered. Sometimes the best revenge is letting the truth speak for itself. It'll hit harder than anything else. Felicia felt a spark of gratitude for her friend's clarity, a lifeline in the storm. Back at her desk, Felicia refined her strategy. She envisioned the Fox Theater's auditorium, the guests in their finery, the moment when the QR codes would ripple through the crowd. She calculated the timing. Jasmine would distribute the cards during the officiant's opening remarks, when guests were seated and attentive, but not yet distracted by the vows. The QR codes would spark curiosity, phones would light up, and the truth would spread like wildfire before Kevin or Lauren could react. Felicia's heart pounded, not with fear, but with a fierce determination. This wasn't just about exposing their betrayal. It was about reclaiming her power, about refusing to let their lies define her future. She stood, crossing to the mirror, her reflection a study in contrast, her eyes red-rimmed from unshed tears, her posture unyielding. The Vera Wang gown hung nearby, a symbol of the dream she'd believed in, now repurposed for a different kind of ceremony. She wasn't the heartbroken bride. She was a strategist, a warrior in silk. The clock ticked toward 4 a.m., and Felicia returned to her laptop, reviewing the webpage one last time. Every pixel was perfect, every word a dagger. She closed the lid, the room falling silent except for the faint hum of the city outside. Atlanta was still asleep, but Felicia was wide awake, her plan a blazing light in the darkness. Tomorrow the Fox Theater would bear witness to a truth that would shatter the facade of love and leave Kevin and Lauren nowhere to hide. The Fox Theater in Atlanta stood like a cathedral of dreams, its gilded arches and crimson curtains bathing the auditorium in a glow of timeless grandeur. Felicia Morgan stepped into this hallowed space, her Vera Wang gown trailing behind her like a whisper of silk, its ivory sheen catching the light of the crystal chandeliers. To the world, she was a radiant bride, her dark skin luminous, her eyes bright with the promise of forever. But beneath the polished exterior, a fire burned, a resolve forged in the crucible of betrayal. The weight of the QR code cards, tucked away in a velvet box with her wedding coordinator, pulsed in her mind like a heartbeat. Today, the stage was set not just for vows, but for a reckoning, and Felicia, the brilliant project manager, was ready to conduct her most daring plan yet. The auditorium buzzed with the murmur of 200 guests, their finery a kaleidoscope of color against the theater's opulent backdrop. Felicia's mother, Diane, sat in the front row, her emerald green dress a vibrant contrast to her warm smile, her eyes misty with maternal pride. Harold, her father, stood nearby, his tailored suit crisp, his expression one of quiet strength as he prepared to walk his daughter down the aisle. Kevin Walsh, the groom, waited at the altar, his blonde hair gleaming under the spotlights, his black tuxedo tailored to perfection. His smile was confident, almost smug, as he adjusted his cufflinks, oblivious to the storm gathering around him. Lauren Baxter, Felicia's cousin and bridesmaid, stood among the wedding party in a lavender gown, her face a mask of serene composure, her eyes darting occasionally to Kevin with a warmth that now sickened Felicia. The organ swelled, its notes weaving through the air as the guests settled into their seats. Felicia's best friend Tanya, her maid of honor, stood beside her, radiant in a deep sapphire dress, her hand a steady anchor on Felicia's arm. Tanya's lawyerly intuition sensed something beneath Felicia's calm, but she said nothing, offering only a reassuring squeeze. Kevin's brother Ryan, the best man, flanked the groom, his quiet demeanor a stark contrast to the vibrant energy of the wedding party. The officiant, Reverend Thompson, a silver-haired man with a voice like warm honey, took his place at the altar, his presence commanding reverence. He began with words of love and commitment, his sermon a tapestry of scripture and wisdom that seemed to mock the truth Felicia carried. Felicia's heart pounded, not with nerves but with the clarity of purpose. She had signaled Jasmine, her wedding coordinator, before the ceremony began, entrusting her with the velvet box of QR code cards. Jasmine, a seasoned professional with a knack for discretion, moved through the pews like a shadow, her smile polite as she handed out the cards. "A special surprise from Felicia and Kevin," she murmured, her voice soft but inviting. The cards, elegant on cream cardstock with a magnolia border, looked like a charming wedding favor, their true purpose hidden beneath a veneer of celebration. Guests, curious and expecting a digital guestbook or candid photos, tucked them into purses or pockets, some already reaching for their phones, their screens on silent as per the theater's etiquette. Felicia stood at the altar, her gaze fixed on Reverend Thompson, but her peripheral vision tracked Jasmine's progress. The coordinator glided past Felicia's Uncle Marcus, who accepted a card with a nod, his curiosity piqued. Tanya's sister, seated near the middle, slipped a card into her clutch, whispering to her husband. Kevin's colleague Brian, a sharp-eyed financial analyst, took one, his brow furrowing slightly as he studied the magnolia design. Diane, Felicia's mother, received hers from a cousin, her smile bright as she assumed it was a thoughtful touch from her daughter. Harold, ever practical, tucked his into his jacket, unaware of the bomb it contained. Lauren at the altar was oblivious, her attention split between the Reverend's words and stolen glances at Kevin, her composure a fragile facade. The theater's air grew heavier, not with the weight of romance, but with the undercurrent of Felicia's intent. She felt the eyes of the guests, family, friends, colleagues, watching her, their anticipation palpable. Her tech firm's CEO, Carla, sat near the front, her presence a testament to Felicia's professional stature. Kevin's financial partners, a cluster of polished suits, chatted quietly, their excitement for the event evident. Felicia's cousins, scattered throughout the pews, whispered about her gown, their admiration a bittersweet echo in her mind. She stood poised, her posture regal, but inside she was a conductor waiting for the orchestra to strike its first note. The QR codes now circulating were her instruments, and the truth they carried would soon crescendo. As Reverend Thompson spoke of trust and unity, Felicia's mind was a fortress of focus. She envisioned the moment when the guests would scan the codes, their curiosity giving way to shock. The timing was critical. Jasmine's distribution was perfectly paced, ensuring the cards reached every corner of the auditorium before the ceremony's pivotal moment. Felicia's pulse quickened, but her face remained serene, a mask of bridal calm. Kevin caught her eye, his smile warm, unaware that the woman he'd betrayed was about to unravel his world. Lauren adjusted her bouquet, her lavender dress swaying slightly, her ignorance a stark contrast to Felicia's clarity. The theater, with its soaring ceilings and velvet seats, was no longer just a venue. It was the stage for a truth that would change everything, and Felicia was ready to take the spotlight. The Fox Theater's auditorium was a crucible of anticipation, its golden light and velvet seats holding 200 guests in a delicate balance of celebration and suspense. Felicia Morgan stood at the altar, her Vera Wang gown a beacon of grace, but her heart was a storm of resolve. The QR code cards, those elegant cream rectangles with their magnolia borders, were now scattered among the pews, passed from hand to hand by her trusted wedding coordinator, Jasmine. Each card, labeled a surprise from Felicia and Kevin, was a silent grenade. Its pin was pulled the moment a guest's phone scanned the code. As Reverend Thompson's voice wove through the air, speaking of love's enduring bond, the truth began to ripple through the crowd, a wave of shock that Felicia watched with the precision of a conductor awaiting her symphony's climax. Jasmine moved like a ghost through the aisles, her professional smile unwavering as she distributed the last of the cards. Guests, lulled by the ceremony's rhythm, accepted them with polite nods, their curiosity sparked by the promise of a wedding memento. Felicia's Uncle Marcus, a burly man with a penchant for gadgets, was among the first to act. He pulled out his phone, his thick fingers fumbling with the QR scanner, expecting a slideshow of candid photos or a digital guestbook. Instead, the screen lit up with Lauren's text to Kevin. "I can still feel your hands on me. Our little secret, right?" And the unmistakable photo of their illicit embrace. Marcus's face froze, his eyes widening as he tilted the phone toward his wife, who gasped, her hand clutching her pearl necklace. The ripple began. Felicia stood poised, her gaze fixed on the Reverend, but her peripheral vision caught the subtle shifts in the crowd. Tanya's sister, seated in the middle rows, scanned her card and stifled a cry, her husband leaning over to see the screen, his jaw dropping. Kevin's colleague Brian, a sharp-eyed financial analyst, stared at his phone, his face paling as he passed it to his wife, who covered her mouth in disbelief. Whispers began to snake through the pews, soft but insistent, like a breeze before a storm. Felicia's cousin Tasha, seated near the back, showed her screen to her teenage daughter, who gasped audibly, drawing glares from those still focused on the ceremony. The cards, innocuous in their elegance, were now a spreading contagion, each scan igniting a new spark of horror. Diane, Felicia's mother, sat in the front row, her emerald dress a vibrant contrast to her warm, unsuspecting smile. A cousin handed her a card, and Diane, assuming it was a sweet gesture from her daughter, scanned it with a fond chuckle. The smile vanished as the web page loaded, the text and photo searing into her consciousness. Her hand trembled, the phone slipping slightly as a choked sob escaped her lips. She turned to Harold, her husband, her eyes brimming with tears. But Harold, still holding his unopened card, looked confused, his engineer's mind slow to grasp the unfolding chaos. Diane's sister, Lauren's mother, received a card from a neighbor and scanned it, her face crumpling as she realized her daughter's betrayal. She clutched her handkerchief, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. The auditorium's atmosphere thickened, the Reverend's words about trust and fidelity now a cruel irony. Felicia stood still, her expression serene, but her pulse raced as she tracked the growing unrest. Kevin at the altar sensed the shift, his blonde hair catching the light as he glanced nervously at the crowd. His smile, once confident, faltered, his eyes darting to Lauren, who stood among the bridesmaids, her lavender gown swaying slightly. Lauren's composure held, but her fingers tightened around her bouquet, a flicker of unease crossing her face as she noticed guests whispering and passing phones. She hadn't seen the cards, hadn't scanned one, but the air was changing, and she felt it like a predator sensing a trap. Tanya, Felicia's maid of honor, stood close, her sapphire dress a bold contrast to her growing suspicion. She'd noticed Felicia's subtle signal to Jasmine earlier, and now saw the card circulating. When a guest in the second row passed her a card, Tanya scanned it discreetly, her lawyer's instincts kicking in. Her breath caught as the web page loaded, the evidence of Kevin and Lauren's affair glaring in high definition. She squeezed Felicia's hand, a silent vow of support, her eyes flashing with anger on her friend's behalf. Felicia returned the pressure, a wordless acknowledgement, her calm exterior a fortress around her resolve. The crowd's reactions were a study in human emotion. Felicia's boss, Carla, near the front, scanned a card and went rigid, her CEO's poise giving way to shock as she whispered to a colleague. Kevin's financial partners, clustered in a middle row, exchanged phones, their murmurs growing louder, their polished veneer cracking. A cousin from Felicia's extended family passed her phone to an aunt, who let out a soft cry, drawing stares. The whispers crescendoed, a low hum that threatened to drown out the Reverend's sermon. Children, sensing the tension, stopped fidgeting, their parents too engrossed in their screens to notice. The theater, once a sanctuary of celebration, was now a cauldron of revelation, each guest a witness to the unraveling of a perfect facade. Felicia's heart pounded, but her face remained a mask of bridal grace. She knew the QR codes were doing their work, spreading the truth faster than any confrontation could. The timing was impeccable. Jasmine had ensured every section of the auditorium had cards, and the guest curiosity had done the rest. Reverend Thompson, oblivious to the undercurrent, continued his homily, his words about sacred vows, a stark contrast to the betrayal unfolding in the pews. Felicia's eyes flicked to Kevin, whose unease was now palpable, his hands clenching at his sides. Lauren shifted, her smile strained, as if sensing the noose tightening. The truth was a wildfire, and Felicia, its silent architect, stood ready for the moment when the flames would consume the lies. The Fox Theater's auditorium was a pressure cooker, its gilded splendor now a backdrop to a brewing storm. Felicia Morgan stood at the altar, her Vera Wang gown a shimmering armor, her heart a furnace of resolve. The QR code cards had done their work, spreading the truth of Kevin Walsh and Lauren Baxter's betrayal through the crowd like a spark through dry grass. Whispers and gasps had replaced the reverent hush, phones glowing with the damning evidence of their affair. Reverend Thompson, his silver hair catching the chandelier's light, reached the pivotal moment in the ceremony, his voice resonant with tradition. If anyone can show just cause why Felicia and Kevin may not be joined together, let them speak now or forever hold their peace. The words hung in the air, a challenge Felicia had been waiting for, her cue to seize the stage and unveil the truth in a blaze of reckoning. She stepped forward, her movements deliberate, and took the microphone from the Reverend's outstretched hand. The auditorium fell silent, the weight of 200 pairs of eyes pressing against her. Felicia's gaze was steady, her voice a blade wrapped in velvet as she began. "I have something to say." The words cut through the silence, sharp and unyielding, drawing every breath in the room to a halt. She turned to Kevin, his blonde hair no longer charming, but a stark reminder of his deceit, his face now a mask of confusion. Lauren, in her lavender bridesmaid dress, froze among the wedding party, her bouquet trembling in her hands. Felicia's mother, Diane, sat in the front row, her emerald dress stark against her tear-streaked face, the QR code's revelation still raw. Harold, her father, gripped his chair, his engineer's calm shattered by the betrayal. Felicia's eyes locked on Kevin, then shifted to Lauren, her voice rising with a clarity that filled the theater. "Kevin, I loved you with my whole heart," she said, her words carrying the weight of a vow broken. "Lauren, you were my sister in every way that mattered." The crowd leaned forward, some clutching phones still displaying the incriminating text and photo, others whispering urgently to neighbors. "But last night, I discovered you've been betraying me. Together." Gasps erupted, a collective intake of breath that echoed off the ornate walls. Kevin's face drained of color, his mouth opening in a futile attempt to form words. Lauren's eyes widened, panic flashing as she realized the cards had exposed their secret, her composure crumbling like ash. Felicia gestured to the congregation, her hands sweeping across the sea of shocked faces. "Everyone here knows what you did. The proof is on their screens. Your words, your photo, time-stamped and undeniable." Her voice was steady, but each syllable carried the fury of a woman scorned. She turned to Kevin, his blue eyes now wild with desperation. "You thought you could let me stand here, vowing my life to you, while you and my cousin carried on behind my back." Lauren tried to step forward, her lips parting as if to protest, but no sound came, her face a portrait of terror. Diane, in the front row, sobbed openly, her handkerchief pressed to her mouth, while her sister, Lauren's mother, stared at her daughter with a mix of disbelief and shame. The theater was a cauldron of emotion, the guests' reactions a tapestry of shock and outrage. Felicia's Uncle Marcus, his phone still glowing with the evidence, shook his head, his jaw tight. Tanya, her maid of honor, stood like a sentinel beside her, her sapphire dress a bold contrast to her fierce loyalty, her eyes daring Kevin to respond. Kevin's colleague Brian, seated among his financial partners, whispered furiously, his respect for his co-worker evaporating. Felicia's boss Carla sat rigid, her CEO's poise masking a quiet fury on her employees' behalf. Even the children, usually restless, were still, their parents too engrossed in the unfolding drama to notice. Felicia's voice rose, a crescendo of pain and power. "You made a mockery of this sacred moment, planning to let me walk down this aisle blind to your lies. But the truth always finds a way." She paused, letting the silence amplify her words, the weight of the congregation's gaze pinning Kevin and Lauren in place. Kevin half stood, his hands shaking, his voice a stammer. "Felicia, But she cut him off, her eyes blazing. "This wedding is over," she declared, her voice ringing like a gavel. "So are our relationships, both of you." The words landed like thunder, and the auditorium erupted into chaos. Guests shouted questions, their voices overlapping in a cacophony of disbelief. Lauren collapsed into a pew, her lavender dress pulling around her as she sobbed, her hands covering her face. Kevin pushed toward the altar, his face red with panic. But the crowd's murmurs drowned his excuses. Diane, supported by a cousin, wept openly, her pain not just for Felicia, but for the family fractured by Lauren's betrayal. Harold stood, his face a mask of grief, his hand reaching for Diane but finding only air. Felicia handed the microphone back to Reverend Thompson, whose stunned expression mirrored the congregation's. She turned, her gown flowing like a river, and began her walk down the aisle, her head high, each step a declaration of freedom. Behind her the chaos swelled, Kevin's desperate shouts, Lauren's hysterical cries, and the guests' clamor. But Felicia's resolve was unshakable, her exit a testament to a woman reclaiming her power in the face of betrayal. The crisp Atlanta air greeted Felicia Morgan as she stepped out of the Fox Theater, the weight of her Vera Wang gown trailing behind her like a discarded dream. The chaos of the wedding, Kevin Walsh's stammered excuses, Lauren Baxter's tear-soaked collapse, and the stunned gasps of 200 guests faded into a distant roar as she stood on the theater's steps, her head held high. The city's skyline glittered under the night sky, a canvas of possibility that mirrored the strange liberation pulsing through her veins. Felicia had exposed the betrayal of her fiancé and cousin in a blaze of truth, and now, with the world watching, she was free. Her heart, though bruised, beat with a fierce resolve, and as she breathed deeply, she felt the first stirrings of a new chapter, one she would write on her terms. Tanya, her maid of honor, caught up to her on the steps, her sapphire dress catching the streetlights as she enveloped Felicia in a fierce hug. "You're incredible, Felicia," she said, her voice thick with admiration and concern. "How are you holding up?" Felicia's lips curved into a faint smile, her eyes steady. "I'm free," she replied, the words carrying a weight that surprised even her. "That's enough for now." Tanya nodded, her lawyer's instincts recognizing the strength beneath Felicia's calm. Behind them, guests spilled out of the theater, some approaching with words of support, others clustering in shocked whispers, their phones still glowing with the QR codes damning evidence. Felicia's mother, Diane, emerged, supported by a cousin, her emerald dress stark against her tear-streaked face. She reached for Felicia, her embrace a silent vow of love amidst the wreckage. The story of Felicia's wedding exploded across Atlanta like wildfire. By morning, social media was ablaze with posts from guests, the hashtag Felicia and Kevin Forever, now a bitter irony. Local news outlets picked up the scandal, their headlines screaming of the wedding betrayal that shocked the city. National media soon followed, their calls flooding Felicia's phone, but she declined most, choosing silence over spectacle. She granted one interview to a trusted reporter from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, a woman who'd covered her tech firm's innovations. Sitting in her midtown loft, Felicia spoke with quiet dignity. "I believe in truth," she said, her voice steady. "People deserve to know who they're trusting, especially when it comes to love." The reporter nodded, captivated by Felicia's composure, a stark contrast to the chaos her story had unleashed. The fallout for Kevin and Lauren was swift and merciless. Kevin's financial firm, a bastion of corporate propriety, terminated him within days, citing ethical breaches that tarnished their brand. His once promising career crumbled, his clients fleeing as his reputation became radioactive. Lauren's marketing agency, priding itself on integrity, let her go, unwilling to weather the public backlash. Her social media profiles, once vibrant with professional accolades, went silent, her name now synonymous with scandal. Diane, Felicia's mother, severed ties with Lauren, her niece's betrayal a wound too deep to heal. She also filed for divorce from Harold, Felicia's father, whose failure to address Lauren's suspicious behavior, glimpses he'd dismissed as harmless, felt like a secondary betrayal. Diane's pain was palpable, but her love for Felicia remained a beacon, their late-night talks a lifeline through the storm. Felicia's attorney, Monique Carter, was a quiet force, handling the legal aftermath with surgical precision. Since the marriage was never finalized, no divorce proceedings were needed, sparing Felicia further entanglement. She had paid for much of the wedding, the venue, catering, the Bahamas honeymoon deposit, and Monique negotiated settlements that recouped most of her losses. The prenup, signed in happier times, was irrelevant. but a reminder of Felicia's foresight. Monique insured Felicia's assets, her loft, her savings, her tech stock options, remained untouched, a financial fortress for her fresh start. Felicia took a month off work, her boss, Carla, offering unwavering support. "You showed real character," Carla told her, her voice warm with respect. "Not everyone could have handled this with your grace." A few months later, Felicia stood at a crossroads. Atlanta, once her home, now felt heavy with memories. A professional connection offered her a senior director role at a Seattle tech startup, a chance to lead AI-driven projects with a substantial salary bump. The timing was serendipitous, and Felicia accepted, drawn to Seattle's misty skies and vibrant tech scene. Before leaving, she faced Kevin one last time. He appeared at her loft, his blonde hair disheveled, his eyes hollow. "Felicia, I destroyed everything," he said, his voice breaking. "I'm so sorry." She looked at him, the man who'd once held her heart, and felt only pity. "I forgive you, Kevin," she said, her tone firm. "Not for you, but for me. I'm done carrying this pain." She closed the door, her heart lighter, ready for the road ahead. In Seattle, Felicia thrived, her new role challenging her intellect and reigniting her passion. Her apartment overlooked Puget Sound, its serenity a balm for her soul. She began dating again, cautiously, her experience sharpening her ability to spot red flags. Lauren, she heard through Diane, had retreated to Savannah, her career in ruins, her affair with Kevin a fleeting flame extinguished by scrutiny. Kevin took a low-level job at a suburban firm, his charm no match for his tarnished name. Felicia's wedding day, a legend in Atlanta's social circles, faded from her daily thoughts. The betrayal that had once threatened to break her had become a catalyst, propelling her to a life of purpose and strength, a testament to her resilience in the face of heartbreak. Wow, what a journey Felicia took us on. A story of betrayal, strength, and a bold new beginning. What did you think of her courage at the Fox Theater? Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear how this tale resonated with you and where you're tuning in from. A huge thank you for joining us in this unforgettable story. Subscribe and hit the notification bell to catch our next gripping tale. Until then, keep chasing truth and resilience. See you in the next one.